Hi, this is Dan, and I was working on some new stuff, and it has some things in there that are very similar to old stuff that I thought, you add a new twist to things, but there are certain themes that come through. And a lot of these are topics that come up frequently between myself and other players and other DMs who are using Dimgaard. And so I wanted to take, and I would probably do this about several elements, but one of the things that comes up is I use disease a lot in the Dimgaard adventures, which is unusual for D&D modules. It's kind of one of the little wrinkles that distinguishes Dimgaard. And people say, well, why do you do that? And so there are several reasons. So first of all, and it might be interesting to those of you who are using Dimgaard or considering Dimgaard. So Dimgaard, one of the things is we want it to be authentic. We want it to reflect the way the world at least really was. It's the reason there's so much violence and racism and intolerance. And it's the reason for example, it's so hard to convince Fulton Templars that Dragonkin should not be slaughtered, right? It's because, it's just the way people were. They were bigoted and not very forward thinking, right? But so when we look at diseases, history shows that diseases are. I mean, we live in a world that hasn't completely mastered diseases, but we're certainly, it appears like we are winning the fight, right? But look at like the Native American population. We like to say that the Europeans killed them, which is for the most part true. But the mechanism for killing them, very few of it was through warfare. It was the proliferation of previously unknown diseases like smallpox, right? Much of it done deliberately. And you see that too, like during the Mongol invasions, right? So the points in time when the Mongol invasions of Europe were stalled, it was rarely because of they met a military force that stopped them. It would be because they encountered a epidemic that they didn't have resistance for, that debilitated them or killed large numbers of them for at least for several weeks. And then you have the whole, the Mongols invasion also brought the plague to Europe, and we saw the devastation. So history shows us that diseases are prolific and important, but in D&D you see very little of them, right? They're just glossed over. So most of the modules we create will inject a disease in some form. And usually that is because populations are mixing, and so you get new pathogens that one part that the new people don't have resistances to. That's particularly prevalent where you have an environment where people don't travel a lot, which is the way Europe was prior to the Renaissance. So that's the one reason. It reflects what actually went on. The other reason is there are some classes that have immunity to disease, and it's just a throwaway ribbon for most campaigns, right? It's like you're in an adventure league, and I'm a paladin immune to disease. Big whoop! That was a great ability to gain at that level. Well, in Dimgaard, those become significant, right? They can become quite significant. The damage done by disease is always intended to be the same damage as if you had fought a medium to hard combat encounter, right? So that's the other reason, is that we take these sort of fringe ribbon abilities and it highlights them, right? Spells like Lesser Restoration, which is usually completely overlooked. Second level spell becomes very important in Dimgaard because it can cure disease. So those are the two primary reasons to specifically use disease. But then, just in general, it constitutes a very good delivery device. So, for example, if you're building a module around shadows, which do strength reduction, you can couple that with a disease that does a strength reduction, and so you get a synergy there. And so diseases are a very versatile delivery mechanism for a condition or situation that you can that adds to the overall plot line of a story. And then just hazards in general we prefer because they, like I said, they usually have the same resource drain as a medium to hard encounter, but they are resolved in a matter of a couple of minutes, and that leaves a lot more time in a session for in-character role-playing, or at least deep role-playing. You say, well, I want to have this number of events that drain resources leading up to the climactic encounter. So diseases, like all the other hazards we use, it's very quick to implement, and you can say, okay, so that's one less combat encounter I need to include because I've got a disease in there. So that's how we use diseases. That's why we use diseases. And I hope to give more of these insights as we go along in future weeks. Thanks for considering Dimgaard, and hope you enjoy.